So we're gonna do analysis of the chords and their functions for a jazz song. This is the ballad Bewitched. Right? And then it goes. That's the one there. I highly recommend Ella Fitzgerald's Verve recording. It's my favorite, although Billie Holiday is great too. And I guess there's two levels of things we want to do here. The first one is just make sense of the large scale chord movements and things like that, so you can see how keys and things are defined. And then there's some things about this particular composition, the way that they wrote it, it's got some cool stuff going on that's sort of like above and beyond the chords, but it's embedded in what the chords are doing and helps us understand this. So first off, you can just start by looking for the original key we're in, which is C. Starts in C, ends in C. And then cadences that are, 2 5s in jazz, right? So, and I know we don't always have to write it this way, but this is the 1 chord right here, right? And then this would be my 2. I'm not even gonna, my 2, my 5, right? And then my 1 again right here. And then at the end of the phrase, we have a 2 5 right here, and I just want to explain what's going on before we do much else. Normally this phrase should have gone like, this is a 5 of 5 right there, a D7, like 1 from here, 1 to a D7, which goes to my 5 chord, right? D7 is not a 2 chord, it's a 5 of the 5. This is for if we're going to the second ending, and then it should just go to 1 at the end, right there at the end of the phrase. But because we're turning around and going back to the beginning, we do essentially a deceptive cadence by sticking a new 2 5 instead of the 1 chord to take us back to the 1 chord. If you look at the end, we do, a 2 and a 5, and then it just goes to the 1, right? So that's the correct way to terminate the phrase, but because it's looping back around, it's stuck a 2 5 to take us back to 1 instead of just terminating in the 1. On the second ending, since we're also not finishing the song but going on in the bridge, it goes up to a 4 chord, and we do, by instead of going 5 1, we go 5 5 of 4 and push into the 4, which is another sort of deceptive progression that takes us and moves us on. Both of these are telegraphing that we're not done in the song yet, okay? And you can kind of look around, so we can say, well, look, we have a 1 here, and we have a 5 7 of 5, right? You weaponize the 2 chord to push us to the 5 chord, and then it should have gone 1, but then it doesn't. And it should have gone 1, but it doesn't. And this here is my 5. It's not a 1 chord, it's the 5 of 4. I sure hope this is viewable in the video. We're shooting from a funny angle so we can kind of see the keyboard too. And then, you should try and make sense of these other chords here. So obviously this is a 5 right here. It's got a flat 9 on it though, which is kind of cool, and I think that's for flavor. We'll talk about that in a second. This is my 4 chord right here, right? 4, major 7. Okay, so we have a 1 chord, and then we go to a 2, and then a 5 7, and then a 1. Then we're going to go to my 5 chord, and then we get this flavorful, it's just not a G7 chord, it's got a flat 9, which pulls us back to the 1 chord. And then we're going to kick to the end of the phrase, so we go, but then we get our, let's turn around again, right? And then back to the beginning. So what do we make of this chord right here and this chord right there? Well, the answer is that this is a 7 diminished of this chord right there. In other words, since we know we're going 1 to 2, right? Then this in between is 1, takes a C sharp diminished. Diminished chords feel like 7s of things unless they're common tone diminished. So this is C sharp diminished, and C sharp diminished is 7 of D, and that's where we're headed to. So it's a temporary localized push to get us there, but it's easier once we've analyzed, so 7 diminished of 2. Once we've analyzed, the framing chords, right? to go back in and understand these. Similarly, you might say, well, what's with this C+7? So if you're not familiar with old school jazz charts, the dash means minor 7, right? MAJ, of course, is major 7. A dash means augmented. And there's some discrepancy when you look at different things. Lots of modern, more classical books will say that C augmented 7, unless they tell you differently that 7's a minor 7. In this particular fake book, it's a major 7. So it's a C chord, C, E, G sharp, and a B. It's all encased there to help you with the melody, right? And how do you call that? You literally just call it 1 augmented major 7. And you say, well, what is the function? It's the same function as this here in the bass line. So hopefully you can see my hands. If I get in real close here. So there's my C, right? There's my bass line, right? And then the C sharp walks us up to the D, right? So now when I'm here on this second part right here and I'm on my C chord, okay, like this, right? Then what happens is that this creeps up to the G sharp right there, right? Which then takes us into the F chord. So it's just mirroring that at the same place, but instead of roots, it's going 5th chromatic passing into the 3rd of the F chord that's coming up, okay? So they're what I call, I don't know, like chromatic voice leading or thoroughfare voice leading. In fact, we're going to pause here and just spoil what I think is going on in this piece. If you look here, this piece is about melodic expansions going up and sometimes going down, but mostly going up. So if we start here and go, there's my E, right? And then it goes, and then, so it's actually just walking from the E to the F, or sorry, from the E to the F to the G to the G sharp to the A to the B to the C. Even this, if you want to play sort of inverted Bach games, to there, that D is actually just connecting the C up there. Like we went to C and now it jumps down the octave, right? It's just going up again. It's like this giant long kind of thing. And the bass line at the beginning with the C and the C sharp and the D reflects that as well. And then this G in the inner lines right there is sort of doing the same thing. We can even see that in the bridge. And I know this is getting away from harmonic analysis, but if we look at the bridge, it goes, right? And then it's the same figure, but this drops down. Chords do this, right? So this went from F to there, right? And then up here, it re-kicks up and goes back up to the G, right? Because it resets. But then if you look and think about it, and it goes fine. But if you look at the top line, we started on B's. This goes up a half step. Right? So even in the bridge, we have these two lines where the B is going up to the C, eventually up to the D. And this line right here was F, then it goes down to the E, like that. So this is all about this creeping kind of progression like that. I'm going to show you how that works. Also, there's another similar kind of idea going on in how the chords, not just what they are, but how they relate to each other. Okay. Anyhow, deceptive progression there takes us back. Deceptive progression here takes us to the bridge. Now we see a classic 2-5, just like this here, right? Except in a different key. E is the 2 of D, A is the 5 of that. And so this is like 2 of, now are we really in D? I don't know, but we're going to call it that for now. And this is 5, 7 of, the 2, right? And this is 2, although I'm not sure that I think of it in 2. I actually think we might be in A minor because of the way the chords sound and collapse. Like when you hear a when you hear this chord right here, and I'm gonna put this in here so you can see. Here's my D minor chord right here. Get my fingers out of the way so you can see more of it, right? There's my D minor chord right there, right? D, F, A, C. When you go to the G7, and if you're an experienced pianist / jazz person, this is, you know this, but I'm trying to spell this out for first years and other people just getting used to this. Well, the G7 chord is G, B, D, F, and if we don't spell it from the bottom, but we just go in here, well, my D and my F are there, and these two notes collapse in, right? So from a voicing point of view, you're here like this, and you just collapse these two in like that right there. And this happens again and again in different places. You see this again, same pattern, because it's an E going to an A, E minor, like this, right there, E, G, B, and then these top two collapse into there. When we go to the D chord right here, like it's just plain old D, I'll just put it up here for you so you can see that right there, right? Then, well, let me flip this around now. So I'm gonna take these two notes, put them down here, right? Okay, or these two notes right there, same chord. There's my D, there's my F, there's my A, right? If you do that, then when you go to your A chord, see these two top ones right here? That's my A minor chord. So when I hear this bridge, and I hear this E minor 7, right? Goes to the A7, right? And then it goes to the bridge. This like lost my heart, and I hear this. And it's, you know, right? So that's my chord, right? When the next one happens, these notes right here collapse into there. So I really don't hear this as prime on its own. I hear it's collapsing into this one mechanically the same as all the 2/5s done, even though the chord relation is backwards and the qualities are different. You can also just say that we're in the area of 2 and we're in the area of 6. Or you can just say temporarily we're in the key of D minor and then we're in the key of A minor. It's all the same. It's semantics at that point, right? And then it goes back to D minor, but now it's set up, you think we're just going here and then going back, but it's set up with the D7, going to the G7, it repeats it again, but this is saying I'm 2 and I'm 5 in the key of C, right? It does it again, and then it says, well, we're getting ready to go back to the bridge, so we'll set this 2/5 up again one more time with a 2/5 of the 2 chord, 5, right, 7 sharp 9 of that right there. It's just a setup to get us a little more oomph there, right? So in the area of D minor, in the area of A minor, I feel like this collapses into that. This is my 2/5 to send me there to the bridge. We fake out like we're going to do it again, but then we 2/5 here, right? For a key of C, we do it again. So I guess with the things underneath or the actual melody, it's like he can laugh, right? Right there. And we'll do it again. And now, since we're going to kick to the end, we'll bump this up a step, not because we're going to the key of D, but setting up a stronger 2/5 to get us back into the original music again right there, right? And then I just want to point out for a minute, A7 sharp 9, that's the C. Sharp 9 is a B that's been sharp, so it's written as a C right there. That's in there to accommodate the melody, right? So here's my E minor 7, laughs, and then here's my A chord. And if I were gonna play this, I wouldn't play the C sharp yet. I would be like, right? And then I'd put it in afterwards so that I can hear it push me to the D minor, right? But if you play the A, the bass, and the C, which is my sharp 9, and the C sharp at the same time, you get this kind of sound. And I don't think that's appropriate for the ballad feel of it. It's great for Jimi Hendrix, right? Jimi Hendrix would be like, but here I just think what happens is that the melody takes you to the C, and then your chord pulls you afterwards to the D minor, right? Okay? Yeah, and then this is all the same, right? Until we get to the very end. So instead of going D7 to a G7, it sets it up with its own 2/5 because it's sort of like a grand ending and goes 1. This F major 7, that's my 4 major 7, and if you want to think in classical terms, that's a plagal cadence. Like we have our authentic cadence right there where it goes bothered and bewildered, and then bewildered, right? And then it says plagal cadence, which comes after the authentic cadence, and then back. Like that. So it's just an embellishment, okay? Yeah, I think though, like I said, this is all about the melodic line creeping up slowly, even the tops of my bridge line there and the bottoms going down, right? And then these chords collapsing in on themselves. Whenever you have a 2/5, like the D minor, right, you can see that they collapse in, right? And then you can just, these are not part of what I'm talking about. Even this right here where they're a step apart, if you think about this F, A, C, again, I'm gonna get way up here on the keyboard so you can see it. There's my F major 7, right? Like that. Now, if I go to the G7, okay, and I'm gonna pull the G out from this and put it down here in the bass afterwards, okay, but like way down here, okay? But if you look, this is a G, B, D, F, A flat, okay, taking the G out of it, then my E from the F major 7 will collapse down into the G right there. My C from the F major 7 will collapse into the B, right? So these are going there. And my A from the F major 7 is going to collapse into the A flat there, and the F stays stationary. So you got this great voicing where if you have it all in one hand there, right? And then I just put the root in the bass and collapse these in. It's a great sound. And then to there, right? Right? So collapse. Even going from here to there, the C7 into the second one, if you've got your C7 chord, there it is right there, C, E, G, B flat. If I'm going into my F major 7, then these two notes right here, these are common, but this B flat goes down to the A and that one goes to there. So there's a collapsing in there like that. It's interesting that all the chords seem to collapse into themselves from one chord to the next, but the melody line creeps upwards like this. It's like it's got two different ideas going on. Now, the fact that 2/5s collapse into each other are not unique, and Rodgers and Hart didn't of course invent that. It's just the style of the time, and it's a fact of the chords. But it's the juxtaposition of these two things. Chords collapse inwards, right? And this one here, right? And you know, all through we have these things that are doing that. Even the D chord right there, right, will collapse into the A chord right there, right? And then we have repeats of these kind of things. But then our melody is ignore this, which is that right there, right? And you know, these are the great composers of their time. They're absolutely aware that they were doing that kind of thing, and then mirroring that in your bass lines as well is also intentional, you know, 100%. Anyhow, there you go. Let's talk about this again then, just in summary. Like all jazz pieces, we try and figure out what key we're in, and then we look for framing 2/5s, right? 2/5 in the key of C, right? 2/5 in the key of D or 4D, where we're heading to for this brief, you know, sort of change out there, right? And then we also look for chains of like 5 ofs. So this is D7 is no longer a 2/5, but a 5 of the 5, and this goes to 1, but it's no longer a 1, it's the 5 of the 4, and that's a beautiful circle of fifths. So we start on C, and then we go bum, right? off to the next, like that. Okay, it's kind of cool. And once you have that in place, then you can explain and understand these other incidental, or what I would call linear chords. Even the flat 9 is linear, right there. The sharp 9 over here is linear, right? Explains what those things are, because they're not structural to the 2/5s in those kind of phrase framing sequences and things like that, and the tonic of whatever key you're temporarily in at the time. Then it's easy to sort of say, oh, I see how that's linear. The G is going to the G sharp to the A, the C is going to the C sharp to the D, and then you can find explanations like 5 of 2 going to 2, right? So, yeah, and it's a fantastic piece to know as well. Once you have these things down, it's easier to memorize, because you don't think of them as individual chords. You think of them as, now I'm doing a 2/5 here, or I'm doing a 1 to a 7 of 2, and then a 2/5, right? And then I'm doing a 1, and then I'm making it augmented as I creep into the 4 chord, right? And then I'm gonna collapse my 4 chord in on itself to make that, right? And then I'm 1, and then I'm gonna sequence of circle of fifths using dominance, 5 of 5, 5, 7, and then if we're going to the second ending, I'll do my C7, so 5 of 4, and then my 4. And then you say I'm going into the bridge, which is in D minor, so you do a 2/5 there, right? And then we're back to the bridge, and bridge goes there and collapses into its own 1 chord kind of thing, and then you're 2/5ing your way out. It's chunking these things into groups. I was watching something recently on how we teach people to read, and that you don't start this way, but expert readers, they don't actually read the words like syllabically or phonetically or something. They look at the beginning of the word and the end of the word. You can jumble up the letters on the inside and they'll still know what the word was, partly by context of the sentence, but partly because we see the edges of things and they read whole words. When you start to memorize and think about songs like this, if you start to see these chunk patterns that fit like a little chord sequence, 2/5s, and then the getting into them and the framing of the phrases like that, you start to memorize them as whole phrases or chunks of phrases rather than individual notes or individual chords and things. And that makes it so much easier for you. All right, cool.